This video is all about where to stay at Glacier National Park. My name is Matt, this is Cheryl. We are from We're in the Rockies, and our mission is to help you have a great vacation to the west. So on this trip to Glacier National Park, we are staying at 6 different lodges and hotels throughout the park and on the outskirts of the park. And so we're going to tell you about each one as we go through. We're going to give them a rating, and then at the end we'll give you our final thoughts.
Our first hotel we stayed at last night was the Belton Chalet. It is right outside of West Glacier, super close to the park. It was built in 1910, super old. It's this really quaint and charming Swiss style chalet. And a lot of the hotels around here are going to be this style, so you'll be seeing a lot of these. It did go into disrepair for about 50 years, but they recently renovated it in 1997, and it still has a lot of that old charm, but you can see a few newer things, like the faucets were new, the shower was really nice, so things like that. One of the really cool things about this is it's right across the street from the Amtrak train station, and one of their traditions is as the train pulls into town, people stand on these wonderful decks outside of the chalet and wave. And so they wave to the train goodbye. And so it's really kind of like taking a step back in time. Some of the things to know that they have here, they have an on-site restaurant. It's about $25. They have a little game room in the basement. And then I think their real claim to fame is their decks and their seating outside.
Oh yeah, and it was gorgeous.
And even though it's right off of the street, you feel like you're in the mountains. It smells like pine. You are surrounded by pine trees and ferns, and it's just a really, you kind of feel like when I woke up this morning, I'm like, I know I slept in a comfy bed, but now I feel like I'm camping because it feels like nature out here.
Okay, so let's cover a few pros and cons, and then we'll give it our rating.
Okay, so like we said before, the deck and the grounds, amazing. It just very charming. It's really old.
It was actually quite charming. I thought it was really cool. It was like a trip back in time. So
yes.
I like that part.
Our bed was super comfy. It's really, really clean and nice in there. Great location. We are super close. Although we're not inside of Glacier National Park, we are very close to it.
Yeah, right at the border of the west entrance, the west gate entrance.
I was a little nervous when we checked in because our bed came with earplugs. And it was an old building, so a little creaky, but I've never been in a quieter hotel. It is so quiet in there. So I'm going to give that a thumbs up on quiet. Mm-hmm. The toiletries were really nice and they smelled nice. And then the last thing I liked about it was you can tell that this hotel is meant for people to gather and enjoy each other's company. Like the downstairs game room has just tons of tables set up where you can just sit and play cards or talk or whatever, and then of course the decks where you can sit around, and then the front lobby has a wood fireplace. You know they use it because they've got chopped wood outside. We're here in August, so it's pretty warm, so the fires aren't going, but I'm sure if you were here almost any other time there'd be a fire at night.
So it had that just cool rustic feel. I liked sitting around the fireplace and just eating my morning breakfast. So that was another pro. Did you already mention that? Morning breakfast, they at least give you a continental breakfast, which is
coffee,
kind of
tea,
unusual.
and like a muffin.
Yeah.
And then
Okay, so cons here, the things that we don't maybe love about it. So the room was pretty small. That's to be expected. Again, these are built a long time ago, so the rooms were much smaller back then.
Yes. It was pretty hot. Now, Montana, it's real standard to not have air conditioning because it stays cool most of the year, but we are here at the hottest time of the year. Our room did have a fan, but it was pretty toasty. Mm-hmm.
Toasty, but then at night, remember the evenings in the Rocky Mountains and the dry air, the evenings cool down. This is not like on the East Coast where at night it's still muggy and hot. Not like that at all. So in the evening, we had our windows open. Evening, it cools down.
Yeah, and we had a fan in our room. And then it was a little pricey.
Yeah, maybe a little pricey. I mean, again, to be expected for one of these kind of historic lodges.
And in the middle of the summer, peak travel season.
Exactly. Some of the lodges in the park are going to be more expensive. And of course, they have some probably more expensive options even here. They do have 2 standalone cabins for larger families that are just right next to it here. But pretty much everything else is what you see right here is what you get. It's all right there in that building.
All right, and then the last is just know that this is going to be par for the course in Glacier. We're not going to have good cell service, and this place is no different. We do have some Wi-Fi here.
But not great.
It's not great. It's kind of a weak signal, but
yeah.
You have it. So
One last thing that I liked was that they had a wake up knock on your door instead of a wake up call, because there's no phones in there. You can ask them to come and knock on your door and wake you up in the morning. So that's kind of cool.
And this wasn't really a bad for me, but maybe for some people. There's no TV either. So
yeah, most of these historic lodges, there's not gonna be TV or air conditioning.
yeah.
Okay, let's give it a rating.
Okay, for what this is, I totally give this a 10. This was like, it's supposed to be charming, old, step back in time. You feel like you're in nature. I would totally do this again. The only thing I would say is I don't think I would be bringing my family here. This is a great couples getaway, but I don't think my kids would like it, and I'd be stressed out about my kids breaking things.
And I think I give it a 9. I loved it. I really did. I like the whole charming aspect, the Swiss style and all that stuff. Now, we haven't stayed at some of the other lodges, so we're going to kind of see how that stacks up against some of the other ones. But for me, my experience was a 9. You might have heard some of the cars driving by right here. It's a little close to the main road. Maybe that's my only slight complaint. But all right, let's head on to our next one. Okay, up next is Lake McDonald Lodge. So Cheryl and I stayed here last night, and it was fantastic. So first of all, what is Lake McDonald Lodge? This is located right on Lake McDonald. It's on the west side of Glacier National Park. Most people enter Glacier National Park from the west side, so there's a lot of lodging options on the west side. But probably the two main lodges are Lake McDonald Lodge and the Belton Chalet. But Apgar Village has some places to stay within the park, and then outside of the park there's plenty of places to stay as well. Now this one, it's a Swiss style, but when you go inside, it's like an Old West log style in a way. So you've got this really beautiful lobby. I mean, the lobby is really, really nice. A lot of log decor there, places to sit. There's a big fireplace there, beautiful kind of a chandelier type of a formation up above. And then you walk out the back of the lodge and you get to Lake McDonald here, so you can just sit on these benches right up here and overlook the lake. You can come down here and kind of swim along the lake or walk along the beach. The beach is kind of a rocky beach, but we saw plenty of people just kind of playing in the water. And then they have boat rentals, kayaks, and things like that you can just get out on the lake, plus scenic cruises. And then out in front of the lodge, you can hop on a red bus tour right from here, right from the Lake McDonald Lodge. So this is really Apgar Village is kind of the heart of the west side of Glacier, but Lake McDonald, this little village right here, is also really important to the park. Okay, so our review of this, I give this an absolute 10. This was fantastic. This is just a really great place to come and relax and just enjoy the scenery and enjoy the ambiance and all that stuff. We enjoyed sitting in the lobby for quite a while and just took it easy. If you get up on the second level, there's a really comfortable couch and you can kind of look down on the lobby. That was nice. We enjoyed just sitting out here on the deck and enjoying the lake. We got out on the boat here for a boat ride. Now, also inside is Russell's dining room. So Cheryl and I, it kind of dawned on us when we were staying here that this was our first time staying in a national park lodge. I can't believe we haven't done that before, but we live here in the West, and a lot of times we're traveling to these places and we're camping to make it more affordable, or staying outside of the park or something like that. Now we're trying to get some of these experiences so we can tell you about them. And so this is like our first time staying in a national park lodge, and it did not disappoint. This, again, is a 10. Highly recommend it if you can stay at Lake McDonald Lodge. Belton Chalet was fantastic as well. Lake McDonald Lodge, really a little bit of a notch above. If you had a choice, I would say stay here.
We are now on the east side of the park, so East Glacier, right outside of Two Medicine. This hotel is actually not inside of Glacier National Park. There's no lodging at the Two Medicine throughout the national park system, so that's why we're outside, but we're not too far from the park. And this is the biggest hotel we've stayed at. This hotel was built in 1914 by the railroad, and some things that I think are pretty impressive about it is it has an amazing lobby. It has these giant wood beams and poles, and I was reading about this hotel and it said that the giant logs you see in the lobby actually had to be trained in here from other places because Montana does not have big enough trees for this thing. But it's 3 stories tall. The lobby is the biggest we've seen, but it has rooms in the lodge. It has some cabins. And then as far as the grounds go, this is pretty fancy. They've got a putt-putt, a golf course. There's a venue out back to have weddings. shuffleboard court. So they have a nice restaurant on site, the Great Northern Dining Room. They have a nice lounge if you want to drink. And a lot of people love to just get a drink, sit on the nice decks outside. There's decks in the front and decks in the back with some really comfy chairs that you can just sit and enjoy the grounds, or sit in the lobby. And in the lobby, they have music. All the lobbies we've been to have a piano, and so, but last night they had someone that was playing the guitar and singing, which was really, really nice. We really enjoyed that. As far as our room goes, I would say that this has been our least favorite room of the places we've stayed in. Of course, this is an old building, and so you have to kind of keep that in mind, but it kind of lacked charm. Some of the furniture was old in not a good way. And the bathroom was super small. Like, I was afraid, and the shower including, it was this little tiny shower. So kind of keep that in mind. But I really do think that when you come to these places, you're not coming to hang out in your hotel room. You're coming for the whole experience. And Matt and I really got to enjoy this. We got to sit on the deck last night and look across the front lawn of it, which is pretty big. And right across the front lawn, there's beautiful flowers. And then you can see the Amtrak station. The Amtrak train comes right to here, and it's pretty cute. They have a little red bus, not the red bus tours, but another little red bus that comes, and they'll drive over to the Amtrak station, pick up people and their luggage, and then drive them over to the hotel. They also have tours that leave through here, but it's not the red bus tours because it's through a different concessionaire. Sun Tours picks up right in front of this hotel and takes guests over to the Going to the Sun Road, and it's run by the Blackfeet tribe. So I wanted to just give you a quick little rundown of the things we liked about this hotel, things we didn't like, and our rating. So the things we loved about this hotel was our lobby and outdoor experience. We just loved getting to enjoy the guests here, listen to the guitar in the lobby, and sit outside and just view the beautiful nature around us. That was our very favorite thing about this place. My least favorite was our room. It was fine. The bed was comfortable. It was clean. It just lacked some of the charm that the other lodges in the park have had. The grounds here are beautiful, but if I'm going to be sitting out on the deck, I prefer to look at a lake, and this place doesn't have a lake right by it, and Glacier's known for its lake. So if that's important to you, you might want to think about that. But overall, I give this place an 8. Just because the room wasn't great, but I sure loved everything else about the hotel.
Okay, up next is the Many Glacier Hotel. This is the crown jewel of the lodges within Glacier National Park. Now in 2 days, we're gonna go stay at the Prince of Wales Hotel, which is in the Canadian side of Glacier, which is called Waterton. And that's quite a stunner as well from the pictures, so we'll see about that. But this one is kind of the big crown jewel here in Glacier. So I feel so honored that I got to stay here actually. So let me just tell you a little bit about this and give you our rating on it, and then give you some tips if you're gonna visit here. So the Many Glacier Hotel was built by the Great Northern Railroad. And this was in the early 1900s when the railroads really built up the national park. So they were trying to get tourists to come from the east out to the west. They had a big kind of a program or a campaign called See America First. So a lot of eastern tourists were going to Europe. And as the national parks were kind of getting started up, and as they were protecting land and figuring out, hey, this is kind of a tourism thing, they were trying to get people to come out west and see America first. And so the railroads were a huge part of building up the national parks, and a lot of that was you had to get people to these remote areas, and so they brought them out on the railroad, and then they would take them around these parks by horse and buggy in the early days. But they had to have a place for them to stay. So the railroad actually built all these lodges we've been staying in on this vacation. This one here is built in that Swiss style. That was because they were trying to get these eastern tourists to come out west and kind of try to appeal to them with more of that European style. And so they're billing Glacier as like the Swiss Alps, the American Alps, and that's why they kind of built it that way. One cool thing about all the lodges within Glacier is that they do have a consistent theming with the Swiss style, as opposed to Yellowstone, which is kind of a motley crew of hotels there. They have many different styles going on in Yellowstone. Really cool lodges in and of themselves, but they're different. Okay, so Many Glacier, you can see this gorgeous building here. It's big. It's the part here that you see is the main lodge here, and then there's an annex over there, which is where we stayed. It is located right on the Swiftcurrent Lake. It stares at Grinnell Peak across the way. You can sit out on the deck and just enjoy the most amazing views you'll ever see in your life. I would say in terms of lodges that I've been at, the only views that are comparable to the Many Glacier Hotel are the Jackson Lodge in Grand Teton, which stares out at the Teton Mountains, and the Grand Canyon Lodge, which is on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. El Tovar is more famous on the south rim, but the Grand Canyon Lodge on the north rim sits right on the edge of the Grand Canyon and stares down into it. That's insane. So these are like the 3 best views that I've ever seen from the National Park hotels. Okay, so some of the things here that you can do. First of all, there's a big parking lot here, which is where you're going to park if you come to Many Glacier, pretty much to do anything. And so the boat dock is right outside the back of the hotel. Horse stables are over across the parking lot. So you'd park here, head out to some hikes, boat tours, restaurants. So there's actually quite a few places to eat in here. There's the Swiss Lounge. There's the famous Ptarmigan Dining Room, which is a more elegant, more elegant restaurant. And there's other places that you can get drinks, snacks, gift shops, and things like that. Okay, so our rating on this, I'm giving this an absolute 10. You can kind of tell I've fallen in love with the Many Glacier Hotel. This is so cool. The views, I'm giving it a 10 for the views, but also I think it is the best looking hotel on the outside here in the park. And our room was really nice as well. It was quite charming in there, and we had a lakeside view. We were on the lakeside of the hotel. Okay, a couple of tips for the Many Glacier Hotel, whether you're actually staying here or not staying here. Okay, so first of all, if you're staying here, you need to get on this early. These reservations, this is the most popular hotel in the park, and it books up super early. Then just make sure you understand that the hotel, or that the parking lot is kind of up on the hill here. So to walk out there to the parking lot is a bit of a jaunt. If you're not in good shape, you kind of got to go up the hill. There is this little area here that you can pull into and unload your bags and all that before you head up there. Okay, and then the final tip is that you don't have to be staying here to come and enjoy the Many Glacier Hotel. Come in, check out the lobby, which is beautiful, and has also some big log pillars, kind of like the Glacier Park Lodge did, although they're not quite as big, they don't have the bark on them, but it's still very pretty in there. And then they have a deck out back that you can just walk out there and sit on the chairs and enjoy the view, get a drink, go sit out there. There's a piano in there. Sometimes people are playing, sometimes good piano players are playing, sometimes bad ones are playing. They do a park ranger talk, like a national park ranger gives a history of the hotel at 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock every day. So just come here, eat, take in the views, spend some time here checking out the lake, park ranger talk, all that stuff, and just come and enjoy one of these cool treasures that, I'm so thankful that the railroads were there on the early days of building up the National Park Service, because without them, we wouldn't have such cool buildings to stay at today. Okay, up next is the Swiftcurrent Motor Inn. So this is a little motel that's located about a mile away from the Many Glacier Hotel. So we're still in the Many Glacier Valley here. This is a popular enough valley that they need 2 different places to stay here. In fact, the story behind this is that originally the railroad built the Many Glacier Hotel, this big palatial thing over there, to appeal to these wealthy tourists in the early 1900s. Those were the people who could afford to travel. But the automobile, as it came along, it allowed people to travel out to these parks on their own. They no longer had to buy this big package of a train ride and a hotel stay in order to get out to see these parks. They could drive out here. And so the Park Service actually made the railroad build this little motor inn, is what they call it. And so this is obviously a very simple affair here. This is a simple building with simple little motel and cabins behind here. So there are like 3 motel buildings, motel being just a 1-story lodging, and then they have little kind of cool little circular areas where there's cabins all in a circle facing each other. And the nice thing is they're all tucked away in the trees here. So they kind of wanted to, as opposed to like the Many Glacier Hotel where it sits out there in the open along the edge of the lake and demands attention, this was meant to be kind of kept out of the way a little bit. Now clearly, comparing this with the Many Glacier Hotel, it does not compare at all. I mean, not even close. But You know, surprisingly, there is a little bit of charm to this. So the big thing about this was to appeal to the everyday traveler. And in the early days of American travel along the highways, the motels were the main places to stay as you traveled across the country. Nowadays, motels have mostly been replaced by these bigger hotels and chains and things like that. But there is a little bit of a trip to the past with this one. So it's simple. You walk in there, they have a little clerk's office, they have a tiny little lobby there that you can sit there. The only place where you can get internet here, by the way. Wi-Fi is just poor around the park. But in this valley, there's actually decent Wi-Fi in the Many Glacier Hotel lobby and in the Swiftcurrent Inn lobby. Those are the only two places you can get Wi-Fi internet. But it is kind of a little bit charming in that it kind of takes you back to maybe a time like the 50s or 60s when you'd be staying in hotels as you traveled across the country. Now, our room was a little quirky. It had a toilet that wouldn't stop running. It had a shower that had no water pressure, and it had pillows that looked like they were chopped in half. They were these tiny little pillows to sleep on. But as I walked in there, even though it was a much simpler room than our Many Glacier Hotel, there was still an element of charm. Like we could park right in front of our room and just walk right in, as opposed to many hotels and chains that you would stay at today. So my rating on this is about an 8 for me. And that's because, first of all, it's within the valley. I mean, you can't go wrong staying in the Many Glacier Valley. It's just gorgeous mountain peaks surrounding you. Really, really beautiful. And then second, it's more affordable. That was what it was designed for. It was designed for the everyday American, and even today, it's still more affordable than the Many Glacier Hotel. And then third, there is still an element of charm there, going back to the motel days when travelers would stay at motels as they're on their big cross-country road trip. Okay, the next place to stay is the Prince of Wales Hotel. This is in Waterton Lakes, Canada. So Waterton Lakes National Park. This is on the Canadian side of Glacier National Park. This thing is a stunner. This is probably the best place we've stayed yet. This is amazing. I feel like as we've gone through the park and our vacation, the lodges have all gotten better one after another, except for maybe the Swiftcurrent Motor Inn. This is really incredible. I mean, the pictures really looked amazing, and I was kind of wondering, would this be one of those things that lives up to the pictures? And I think it is. You walk inside, the lobby is gorgeous. It extends all the way to the ceiling. And the really kind of special thing about that is they have these really tall windows so that right when you walk into the lobby, your view is over Waterton Lake, the big valley here, the little town of Waterton below. It's really spectacular. I mentioned in the last video that the Jackson Lodge had these big windows that framed in the Tetons, and that's kind of something that the Many Glacier Hotel was missing out on, but that's what they got right here. So this is kind of cool. It's built by the Great Northern Railroad, just like the Many Glacier Hotel. Same company that built it to bring tourists up here to Canada. And one interesting thing was they had a hard time getting it built and getting the funding and just approval for it and all that stuff. But it was during the 20s and 30s when they built this, during Prohibition in the United States. So it actually became a place for people to cross over the border and a nice place to come and party. So our review of this, again, I'm going to give this a 10. This is so spectacular. The lobby is amazing. The outside is amazing. The location and the view is amazing. The room that we're staying in is nice and old and charming and all that. The bathrooms they've had to update a little bit, and those are actually kind of new and nice. They're nice new. They're not old new like at the Glacier Park Lodge. These are really nice, and wow, just for our last night, couldn't have asked for anything better. Okay, we are now in the lobby of the Prince of Wales Hotel. We have stayed at 6 different lodges or hotels on this vacation, and we want to give you some final thoughts.
All right. One thing to know about all these national park lodges is they have a lot of similarities. So something you can expect from these higher end hotels. So the first thing to know is they were almost all built between 1910 and 1914. So these are some historic, beautiful old buildings that were built to house the really rich as they were traveling. So you're going to be seeing some really fancy stuff. The next thing to know is what to expect in the lobby. They will all have a piano where someone can play. So you can expect to get an actual key to your room. You can expect there to be a piano in the lobby for someone to play. nice seating throughout the lobby with beautiful lighting, and of course an excellent view of a lake or the surroundings around the hotel. So very, very beautiful lobby. What you can expect there not to be is there will not be an elevator, or you can expect to have very poor Wi-Fi. Your bedroom will not be fancy. It'll be clean, your bed will be comfy, but it's going to be pretty rustic. There's no TV, no air conditioning, no fridge or microwave. And we kind of like it that way. We liked that because there was a lack of those entertainment options, people gather to the lobby and you meet fellow travelers, and it's really nice. And you just get, I think one of the best reasons to stay in one of these hotels is you're going to have a great location. You're going to be close to the things you're wanting to go see, but you get to view these beautiful surroundings, these lakes, so much longer than you would if you weren't staying somewhere else, because you can sit in the lobby at night or in the morning. You can sit on the deck outside and just view those, where if you were staying somewhere else, you'd only be seeing these places while you were visiting the park. The other thing you needed to know about these places is they're going to cost. They're expensive. This is not a trip we normally go on, but I think the cheapest room we got was $170, and it just went up from there. And this was just for a standard double room. So you're going to have to plan on it being pretty expensive, and you're going to want to plan on getting your reservations very far in advance, like up to a year for some of these places. We felt so fortunate that we were able to get the lodging that we did.
So I'm going to give you kind of my rankings of the hotels, and then I'll let Cheryl give you her faves and all that. So my favorite one is the current one that we're in, the Prince of Wales Hotel, which is in Canada. It's in the Waterton Lakes Park. But if we leave this one out, I'm going to go with Mini Glacier Hotel. That's no surprise. I'm sure most people, that's probably their favorite. It's a spectacular building. And these two, the Prince of Wales and the Mini Glacier, have the best view. I will say that Glacier Park Lodge in East Glacier probably had the most impressive lobby of all of them. It really was a stunner with these massive logs that they shipped in from the east, or from maybe Oregon. I can't remember where they shipped them in, but
It was Oregon.
from Oregon. So they that lobby was the most impressive, but the room was the least impressive. By the way, I'm leaving out Swiftcurrent Motor Inn, which is kind of in a different category. That's in the more budget category. So we're just talking about some of these kind of fancier lodges and chalets. So unfortunately, Glacier Park Lodge, although it had really nice grounds and nice lobby, it didn't have that great of a room, and nor did it have a great view. So I'm going to kind of probably put that one at the bottom, and then go Belton Chalet, Lake McDonald Lodge, Mini Glacier Hotel, and Prince of Wales.
All right. And I think that my very favorite was Mini Glacier. I just loved it. We lucked out and had a room on the third floor that looked out over the lake, and we had a good balcony area that we could look out over the lake. I just loved the whole atmosphere of it. The lobby was great. The energy in the lobby was fun. And of course, just a beautiful room, beautiful, I guess Mini Glacier is just beautiful and amazing all around. But Lake McDonald also kind of stole my heart. I liked it because as we sat outside on the outdoor seating, I could see families outside throwing rocks into the lake, and it was just really peaceful. And it was my first experience staying on the lake. Our first hotel wasn't on a lake, and so it was just neat to be like, oh my gosh, we are sitting on the balcony of Lake McDonald, and we are getting to just observe this, and it was so fun.
Okay, we have many resources to help you plan your trip if you're traveling to Glacier National Park. We have a playlist on YouTube. Our website is we'reintherockies.com, where we've organized our articles on there by park, and then we have a step-by-step itinerary to check out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, go west, young traveler.